just a little reintroduction for those of you who might not have been here for our first session. Um, I'm Michael, Vestibular Wellness Coach. I've been working with this community for about 3 years now, and I am a vestibular warrior myself, following a pretty life-changing head injury. So everything that comes with this, everything I talk about, all of my work that I do here with clients one-on-one comes from lived experience. Nothing I'm really talking about is theoretical. So hopefully this is a place where we can all just kind of settle and land and be together, kind of knowing we're all going through similar experiences. Um, so just a recap of the structure of our time today. We'll start off with a little talk, discourse. We're going to be talking about self-compassion today, which can be a bit of a tricky subject for us. Then I'll guide you through a mindful and somatic practice around self-compassion. Then we'll have some more open time for Q&A. So again, feel free to use the chat throughout, but we'll have more time at the end to share out loud. And let's use comments, Q&A, chat for things related to the theme, kind of nervous system work rather than medical questions. So, before we even kind of get started with our talk, I want to guide us all through a little practice just to help us get settled. Some of you on the call will be familiar with this, but what we're going to do just a little kind of brushing exercise. So we're gonna lightly brush the body. I'll guide us through, kind of starting at our head and going down to our legs. But this is just a way to wake up the body a little bit, help the brain map the body, be aware of it, be aware of our kind of mechanoreceptors, and just communicate a little relaxation. So we'll start with the face, and you can watch me. I'll guide you through this, just gently running the fingertips along the face. We'll aim for about 10 strokes per body part, letting it be gentle, easy. Take your time with it. No need to rush. Let it be a soft, comforting touch. And moving to the scalp, running the fingers gently across the head, crown of the head. My eyes are closed, but of course, you're welcome to do whatever is comfortable for you, keeping your eyes open. Moving to the ears, gently rubbing the ears, the earlobes. And letting the breath be easy and relax through this too. Moving to the front of the neck, the throat. Some gentle caressing. The back of the neck, perhaps drawing circles with each hand. Hmm. Noticing if you want to sigh or exhale deeply, letting the body sink into your seat a little more. And then we'll take the right hand And brush the left shoulder, left chest, drawing large circles. Your attention settling on the sensation of the brushing. And switching sides using the left hand to brush the right shoulder, right chest. Hmm. And moving to the arms. So really brushing from the shoulder tip down to the fingertips and back up the other side. Caressing the top of the arm on the way down and the back of the arm, the palm, forearm, bicep on the way up. Just luxuriating in this a little bit. And switching to the other arm, using the opposite hand. Really feeling the whole length of it. Moving to the belly, drawing large circles with both hands, all the way from the bottom of the chest down to the pelvis. Moving to the back as much as you can reach, perhaps using the backs of the hands and drawing circles in your mid back, low back. Moving to the legs. So here, whatever position you're in, however, or as comfortable as it is to reach downward, starting from the thighs. Perhaps you can reach a bit below the knees. No need to push yourself or move your body or in any way that's uncomfortable. Really caressing the tops of the thighs, the knees. Perhaps you can get a bit of the back of the calves and the sides of the thighs on the way up. And we'll finish with the soles of the feet. So if you can reach the sole of the foot, starting with one foot, you can rub or use your knuckles or even just tap the sole of the foot. And switching to the other foot. We're just waking everything up, getting a fuller map of our body, And letting this gentle touch communicate a little safety, a little relaxation, which will guide us into our theme for today. And letting that go, taking a few moments here to settle back into a comfortable position and just noticing if there's any shifts that you're feeling in the body, in the mind, and feeling free to share if you want to drop a few words in the chat what that was like, if you notice any difference. And if you don't, that's okay too. Okay. And so for those of us who joined during that little practice, welcome. Just a reminder, this is being recorded in case you want to participate, share, just it'll be distributed for those of us who couldn't join live. Grounding, needed this today. Good. So yeah, this can feel a little relaxing. It can activate the parasympathetic nervous system a little bit. It's a good practice to do before movement, actually, if you're doing any movement, whether it's vestibular rehab, whether it's kind of organic movement, walking, exercise, just kind of waking up all the kind of mechanoreceptors, proprioceptive sensors in the body. Um, but there's also a little comforting touch here, which is kind of the basis of our theme today. So, one of the really difficult things of living with the conditions that we do, among the many, many, many difficult things about it, that I know myself, that I see in pretty much every client that I have ever worked with, is self-blame, self-criticism, self-judgment. It's a real kind of harshness with ourselves, just a lack of compassion, right? It can be feeling like a failure, feeling like, why can't I make more progress? Am I not pushing hard enough? Why can't I do this? There's something fundamentally wrong with me. There's something broken. Why is everybody else responding better to this medication? Why is everyone else in this Facebook group progressing faster? We can really criticize ourselves a lot. And, right, the reasons can be endless. Why didn't I see the signs sooner? I'm not resilient enough. I'm stupid for not avoiding that trigger. I knew that would cause dizziness. Why didn't I avoid it? Just kind of these endless cycles of negative self-talk, of blaming ourselves for what we're going through, for our own suffering, for not doing what we once could, for not being the people that we once were. I'm so much less of a person now. I'm not productive. I'm not valuable. Perhaps some of these thoughts or statements resonate. And it is very cultural to some extent, at least here in the US, to be quite harsh on ourselves, right? To kind of batter ourselves into goodness, make sure we're learning from our mistakes, right? We might feel that if we go easy on ourselves, if we treat ourselves with kindness and with understanding, that is akin to going easy on ourselves or to letting ourselves off the hook, that it won't motivate me to continue trying. It'll be demotivating, and I'm just going to resign to feeling like this forever if I'm not kind of an asshole to myself. Excuse my language. Um, it's very common. And at the same time, extending compassion to other people might come very, very naturally to you. A lot of people in the vestibular community are always looking out for others, putting others first, can be kind of a caretaker dynamic, people pleasing dynamic, while at the same time having difficulty offering that same kind of care to themselves. Yes, sounds like that's resonating with some people. Um, if being hard on ourselves was an effective strategy, we would all be healed. We would, because we're all pretty good at being hard on ourselves. But self-judgment, self-criticism really create a threatening environment for our nervous systems. Right, think about what message is it sending? It's typically sending the message that we are not okay, we are broken, I am not worthy of care, and right, those beliefs can stem quite deep. They might stem historically throughout your whole life from childhood, and so there's all sorts of complex dynamics that can go into it. But there's also the layer of it where we can be aware of what is happening in the moment and what messages we are sending ourselves. And nervous systems have a lot harder time changing and healing from a place of fear and from a place of judgment. So if you imagine a loved one, that could be a family member, a spouse, a child, a pet, right? Imagine they come to you hurt or distressed about something. What is your instinctive reaction? Is it to judge them? Is it to question, like, what did you do to cause this hurt for yourself? Probably not. It might be more instinctive to offer some sort of embrace, some sort of warmth, some sort of reassurance. Maybe it's a compassionate touch, a hug, or a rub, right? To come to their aid, to offer some space of safety, comfort, maybe. When it comes to ourselves, we tend to be far less compassionate. And at the sign of symptoms or a flare, our reaction might be, what did I do to cause this? How do I fix this? It can be this leap straight to, this is a problem. It shouldn't be happening. I go into detective mode. I go into fix it mode. I go into urgency. And where's the comfort? Where is the reassurance? Where is the warmth? And after living with symptoms for a long time, we might feel like we just don't have the space to offer ourselves any comfort. We might feel like we just don't deserve it. Like we have exhausted our sympathy points, that I won't be motivated to pursue treatment or getting better if I'm easy with myself. So what happens? What happens if we treat ourselves with that same kind of affection? What would it mean? What might it sound like? What would it feel like? I am curious, and if you want to drop it in the chat, if you want to use the raise hand function and share out loud, what actually comes up for you when you think about offering that to yourself? Does it feel natural? Does it feel unearned? Does it feel ineffective? What comes up with that? Does anyone wanna share? It feels really hard, unearned, awkward. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a pretty common sentiment. And self-compassion, right? You may have kind of heard the term, you may have tried to practice it. It can come off as this kind of Maybe it feels saccharine, maybe it feels corny, maybe it's kind of like, well, just love yourself because you deserve it. And you're like, okay, that sounds great, but it feels horrible. It doesn't feel true. It doesn't feel authentic. Like, what is this really doing? And I think a really, really major way this comes into play when we're dealing with chronic physical conditions is what it means in terms of how we are relating to our bodies specifically. And from all of my work with this community, from my own personal journey, I see that the default approach people tend to take is to work against their bodies rather than with them. Right? That means I'm resisting what's happening. I'm treating my body as a problem that demands a solution. It's like a machine and I need to push through it. I need to just kind of whip it into submission, essentially. Um, and we're probably all pretty familiar with that approach, and we're probably pretty familiar that it tends to backfire. Um, and so stopping to give ourselves some sort of understanding, as so many of you are saying, feels very awkward and unearned. So, what I mean by a relationship to my body, I want to share my my personal experience, which is everyone has their own experiences and everyone will relate differently. But I remember when my relationship to my body, to understanding how I relate to my body, how I work with my body really changed. So several years ago, kind of coinciding right before I sustained my injury, and certainly after, I delved very deep into a meditation practice called Vipassana, which is essentially body scan meditation. It's observing body sensations neutrally without judgment. It is allegedly the form of meditation that the Buddha practiced. Um, it's just kind of methodically moving through the body, feeling sensations in the body, and practicing not reacting to them. Um, that can be very, very, very challenging for us when we have a lot of fear around the sensations in our body, when they can be very distressing, very uncomfortable. And I got very deep into it, and I eventually went to a formal retreat that was based in this practice. And it was very, very intense. It's a 10-day silent meditation retreat, 10 to 11 hours of meditation a day, no speaking, no eye contact, 2 meals a day. We wake up at 4 a.m. It's really quite brutal. And it was one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life, and it was incredibly insightful. And this was after my injury. Unfortunately, I fared pretty well, but just a really, really intense gauntlet. And I became even more committed to this practice, to this tradition. I was meditating for 2 hours a day when I got back from the retreat, and I went back the next year, and this was after I had developed some new symptoms, worse in a way, not related to the retreat. But I entered the retreat with kind of a new set of things going on in my body, and within like 2 days, I had a pretty intense explosion of symptoms, extreme headaches, dizziness, issues with my eyes. I could not really sit with my eyes closed anymore, and it became really, really distressing. I struggled for several days deciding whether to stay or to go home, right? It became a huge identity crisis. I'm a meditator. This is what I do. I've done this before. Like, this whole practice is sitting with intense sensations. Like, maybe there's something on the other side of this. Maybe I'm meant to go through this, all while meditating for 10 hours a day, not speaking to anyone, just being completely inwardly focused. It became very, very dark and distressing. And I eventually decided to leave after 5 days. And when I got home and for a while afterward, I was quite depressed. I was dealing with this huge flare-up of symptoms. I felt like I was just thrust back into this place that I hadn't been in a very long time, and I now had essentially become disconnected from this practice that I felt was so important to me. Like I can't even sit with my eyes closed anymore. Looking back, it was quite traumatic. It was traumatic to my body, to my nervous system, because for a long time, the moment I would close my eyes while seated, my symptoms would pop up. And I knew that that was not just physiological. It was like a trauma response. And I felt so lost. I felt like, what do I do? This kind of practice had really been my guiding light. I felt like this was my path. This was like what I was going to do to kind of transcend what I'm going through and all this difficulty. And I can now not even practice this kind of meditation. And so I was kind of floating for a little bit, like untethered to anything. And it took some time, but I then started to realize that this meditation practice, even though it was so focused on working with the body and observing these things in the body, there was something about it that was still so mental, so kind of detached in a way. Like it was really keeping this arm's length distance between my awareness and my body, like this very real physical thing that is going on. Like, yes, I can notice all of these things going on, whether it's pain or dizziness or fear or anxiety, boredom, like peace, like all these sensations that can come and go. I could notice it, but there's like, but then what? Like, I started to feel like maybe there's something more. Maybe there's something deeper, some deeper way to relate to what's going on rather to then to just see it and say, okay, whatever. Like, at least for me, I started to take on some form of detaching from what's going on. And I started to consider how, like, with symptoms, with what my body is experiencing, my nervous system, my body was like this wounded creature, like this wounded entity. I mean, it is quite literally. I suffered a head injury, and all these symptoms, it is reacting to all this input, whether it's visual, whether it's movement, whether it's, just sort of energetic output. Responding with symptoms like it is threatened. It is threatened by all this stuff. It is threatened by movement or by light or by whatever it is. And in its own way, its own maladaptive way, it's trying to protect me. It's like, don't look at a screen for that long because it's dangerous. I'm gonna make your eyes hurt and give you a headache and make you dizzy. And for so long, I just related to my body like it was this machine. It was dysfunctional. I got this injury, right? I just gotta fix these patterns that kind of got screwed up, right? Just do these therapies, do this vision therapy, do vestibular therapy, go to my brain injury rehab clinics. Um, right? Kind of like, let me just whip it back into shape. And I started to realize like I can't it doesn't re like I can do what I can to support it, but I'm also not choosing any of this. Like I don't control what is going on in my body for the most part. There's some conscious control I have over it, but almost every process in my body is happening on its own, right? It's outside of my conscious control, including producing symptoms. Like my body's just acting independently. And so I could spend all my time wondering, like, why won't you just work properly? Why don't you just operate properly? Why don't you just adapt again? Why are you getting overwhelmed by all this stuff that you're doing? And that my mind can never really master my body in that way. And so I did start to see my body as like this kind of unique entity, and that if it's feeling threatened, if it's responding to all this stuff with, right, with fear, with activation, with dysregulation, that I have to start showing it a bit more comfort, a bit more care. I have to help it start to learn that it's safe. And so I started experimenting with talking to my body, right? As if it were its own being. Like, not that it's detached from me, but just recognizing the autonomy of it, saying things like, I am sorry that you are hurting right now. I started experimenting with kind of gestures of comfort and care, like rubbing my arm or holding myself, like these kinds of gestures that, when delivered by other people, usually help us feel protected, help us soften. And so compassion started to take on a very different dimension for me beyond this concept of I should be kind to myself because it's supposedly a good thing to do, to something that I could really sense in a much deeper way. Like this being needs comfort and support. It just does. Like I have to work with it. I have to collaborate with it. I can't just yell at it and criticize it and hope that it finally gets the message, right? A scared kid, a wounded animal, like they don't learn from being tormented, um, and abused. And I use I use that word like with the lowercase a. And so my framework started to shift from like, how do I fix what's going on to how do I support this body that is going through its own thing on its own timeline. Like it has kind of its own brain in a way, right? The nervous system. It's like this brain. So that started to shift what compassion for myself meant. And that leads us into our guided practice for today. So, um, wherever you are, letting yourself settle in again, beginning by taking a few deep breaths, inhaling through your nose, exhaling through your mouth for twice as long. And with each breath, letting go of any tension or bracing, releasing the jaw, dropping the shoulders, letting your arms and legs give way to gravity. Just really feeling every subtle pocket where you can let go. Your brow, corners of your mouth, your belly, your pelvic floor, fingers and toes. And turning your awareness inward a little more, just taking a general scan of the body to notice any sensations that are arising. Noticing any areas of discomfort, tension, without judgment, if you can. We can be so quick to question what's caused these sensations or when they'll dissipate. But instead, just notice without labeling, without creating a story. Without needing to change just for this moment. Acknowledge the pain or challenges without blame. Can you look upon your body, your whole being with an understanding? Noticing if there's any resentment or aversion. And if so, can they soften as you look upon your body with care? And with the understanding that everybody else in this space shares this experience too. You might imagine that your body is this wounded or scared being that is seeking comfort and understanding. You might picture yourself gently cradling it. You might offer yourself that real physical touch, a hand on the heart, perhaps wrapping your arms around one another as an embrace, perhaps tenderly rubbing an arm with the opposite hand. Allow yourself to both extend and receive this tenderness. Let your touch signal that you can soften in your body, in your breath, in your mind, in your whole awareness. You can surrender to this moment as it is. Asking not how you fix yourself, but how you support yourself. Allowing your touch to say, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, body, that you're frightened. But thank you for trying to protect me. I'm sorry, body, that you carry so much vigilance. But I'm here to help you know safety and ease, to feel less guarded and more expansive. And I forgive myself. I forgive myself for not always hearing or understanding the body's messages, for wanting to escape the pain that the body produces, for not always knowing the most supportive path for the body. Because all these experiences, these difficulties and confusions are understandable and expected even. But they all lead me to know the body better, to know my tendencies and my patterns better, to know how to really hear and support the body, to know how to really love the body and myself, and not in spite of what I've experienced or in spite of how I've changed, but because I have experienced it. I deserve compassion because I am. And I can embrace myself, my body, because there is truly no reason not to. In this moment, there's nothing to fix, there's nothing to solve, there's nowhere to get, nobody I'm failing to be or become. Sinking deeper and deeper into this pure being, pure acceptance of myself. Hey, let the body start to hear my message. Hey, let the body start to learn this feeling that it is safe to let go. Taking a few moments and a few cycles of breath to nurture this space that you've created within yourself. And when you're ready, slowly bringing your awareness back into the space around you. Opening your eyes if they were closed. And sensing if you can bring this softness and this compassion into your space.